I got admitted into the best university in the country along with my childhood sweetheart, the school beauty. But she changed her choice to a lower-ranked university in the South. The reason to follow the boy she secretly had a crush on. The school beauty was confident thinking I would also give up Peking University for her and go south. Yet in the blink of an eye I swiftly prepared all the documents behind her back and submitted an application to a top overseas university. Since I am not the only one in her heart, then I don't want her either. Chapter 1. After the college entrance exam, everyone in school indulged themselves once handing out love letters to their crushes. When I heard that Willow was going to confess to me, I wasn't surprised. She was the school beauty, my childhood sweetheart. In the eyes of others, it was only natural that we would end up together. At the back door of the classroom, just as my fingertips were about to touch that pink-blue love letter, a mature woman suddenly barged in and tore the paper to shreds. She claimed to be 28-year-old Willow who had traveled back from 10 years in the future. Don't confess to George. He is not your true love. She pulled at her 18-year-old self and pointed at the boy in the corner wearing a faded school uniform. Do you see, Makoto? 10 years later, you will love him madly with a love that shakes heaven and earth. Since you are destined to be with him, why waste these 10 years? 18-year-old Willow felt it utterly absurd. She flung her hand away. Crazy woman, in this life I only like George, but that confession never continued. 28-year-old Willow also took the chance to stay, saying she wanted to help her younger self see through her heart earlier. Gradually I began to notice Willow changing. When Makoto was sick, she would immediately rush to support him to the hospital, forgetting that I was waiting for her at the amusement park for a whole hour. During a dinner, she naturally remembered that Makoto disliked peanuts and picked them out from the spicy chicken for me, yet forgot that I was allergic to peanuts. On rainy days, she would rather get soaked herself just to lend the umbrella to Makoto, even though I was standing right beside her in the rain. These tiny shifts, like a blunt knife slicing at flesh, dragged my heart little by little into the abyss. Until the day we filled out the college applications. George, I'm sorry. Willow's eyes flickered, not daring to meet mine. I can't go to Peking University with you. The new artificial intelligence program at South City University suits me better. My heart turned cold in an instant. I knew too well, South City University was the only school Makoto could apply to with his barely passing score. She held my hand, her tone carrying that familiar spoiled plea. Come with me to South City, okay? That way we can still be together. I've always listened to you before. Just let me have my way this time, all right? Her words pierced into my heart like needles. Silently I pulled back my hand and nodded. Yet in the blink of an eye I swiftly prepared all the documents behind her back and submitted an application to a top overseas university. Willow, since your affection is no longer solely mine, then I don't want it anymore. The day the admission letter arrived, my heart was unexpectedly calm. I opened up that huge storage box, the one filled with all the things she had given me over the years. Childish crayon drawings, limited edition sneakers, and necklace engraved with our initials A. Thick stack of movie stubs, the notes she had stayed up late organizing for me once I treated them as treasures. Now hugging the box, I walked down to the trash bin and without the slightest hesitation threw them all in. Just as I turned around, I caught sight of two figures not far away. 28-year-old Willow in a fitted dress was gripping her 18-year-old self tightly. The younger girl, slender waist, long legs, her school uniform puffed by the wind, that face which once captivated every boy in school, was full of anger. Let go. 28-year-old Willow's voice was suppressed. Why are you still looking for him? What you should be doing now is staying with Makoto. He's the one you truly love. The young Willow flung her hand away furiously, her eyes filled with pride. Nonsense, the only person I like is George. You crazy woman, can you just disappear already? The older Willow sneered, her words sharp as a blade. Oh really? Then why did you give up your future and Peking University just for Makoto? The girl's face froze for a moment, though her voice grew even colder. Who said it was for him? Watching this scene, I found it utterly absurd. Not wanting to linger, I turned to leave. But unfortunately, she still saw me. Willow immediately ran over, grabbed my hand without hesitation, and her voice turned soft at once. George, didn't you say you wanted to watch that new romance movie? I already bought the tickets. Let's go together, okay? No. My voice was indifferent without a single ripple. Her smile stiffened for a moment but then softened quickly again, her gaze full of a spoiled plea. Are you still mad about me changing my choice of university? Didn't you already agree to go to South City University with me? That program really has great prospects. Just this once. Listen to me this once, okay? As she spoke, her eyes drooped slightly at the corners. This was once the look I could never resist. Before, as long as she looked at me like this, I would agree to anything. But now all that remained in my heart was numbness. Before I could answer, Willow had already half-forced me into her newly bought sports car. Her 28-year-old self followed along, expression dark, silently taking the back seat. The car started. In the confined space, the air grew suffocating. 28-year-old Willow swept her gaze around the car and suddenly spoke. "This car is new, isn't it? You should change the Starlight air freshener George likes. Makoto can't stand it, he prefers fruity scents. And replace the milk in this compartment too, Makoto is lactose intolerant. Better stock some soda crackers instead." Willow's fingers tightened around the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. "Enough already, I'll say it one last time. The only one I like is George. There is absolutely no way I could ever like that, Makoto." But 28-year-old Willow acted as if she hadn't heard her outburst. "Is that so? Then why in the future will you love him down to your very bones, staying up all night for him, waiting under his building for hours even?" As she listed one crazy thing after another that her future self had done for Makoto over the past 10 years, I sat in the passenger seat, every word stabbing into my heart like an ice pick, the pain making it almost impossible to breathe. Through the car window, I watched the rapidly retreating streets outside, everything blurring into a haze. At the cinema, Willow leaned against my shoulder, the popcorn in her hands, the caramel flavor I liked. While watching the movie, she instinctively leaned closer, wanting to whisper complaints about the plot. The light from the screen cast over her delicate profile, her lashes impossibly long. As I looked at her, my thoughts grew hazy. Memories surged uncontrollably. When we were 3, she wobbled into my bed, clutching her little pillow, her babyish voice saying, "Mom said girls are supposed to sleep with their husbands in the future." When we were 7, I fought the chubby boy from the next class to snatch back her stolen hairpin. I ended up bruised and swollen, yet carried the cracked hairpin like a treasure in my pocket. When we were 12, I was hospitalized with a fever. She skipped class to rush over, her eyes red as she leaned by my bedside saying, "Brother, don't scare me." When we were 15, she was a girl just awakening to love. She clumsily wrote me a love letter full of typos, yet solemnly filled an entire page with drawn hearts. I couldn't understand it. With so many fierce, unforgettable moments between us, how could it turn out, as that woman said, that 10 years later she would fall in love with an utterly ordinary Makoto, so miserably, so humbly, and yet everything that had happened lately left me no choice but to believe. At that moment, Willow's phone began vibrating frantically, the name flashing on the screen. Makoto. She glanced at it and hung up. The call came again, relentless. She hung up once more. This repeated countless times until suddenly the 28-year-old Willow in the back seat grabbed her hand and asked urgently, "What's today's date, the 10th? Why?" Willow replied impatiently. "Answer the call quickly." The older Willow's voice was more frantic than ever. "It's today. Makoto will be harassed by some debt collectors. To escape, he'll jump from the 2nd floor, break his leg, and be bedridden in the hospital for a month. Go to him now." Willow frowned deeply. "What nonsense are you spouting? Even if something really happened, it has nothing to do with me. At most, he's just a classmate. If you don't go, you will regret it. You'll hate yourself for the rest of your life," the older Willow nearly roared. But Willow sneered, her tone firm as steel. "If I abandon George here right now, that's what I'll regret." With that, she directly set her phone to silent and tossed it face down on the seat. The 28-year-old Willow stared at her for a few seconds, her gaze complicated. Finally, she turned away. "You won't go then, I will." She strode off, disappearing at the entrance of the cinema. The movie continued playing, but I could clearly feel that Willow's mind was no longer here. She grew restless, her fingers tapping the armrest unconsciously, her eyes darting again and again toward the phone that lit up silently on the seat. Finally, when the screen lit up once more, she suddenly stood up, her tone hurried as she lied. "George the First? I forgot to buy you a Coke. Wait here, I'll be right back." As she said this, she didn't even dare to meet my eyes. Snatching up her phone, she rushed out of the theater. I watched her almost running figure vanish, my heart sinking deeper and deeper until it felt like it had sunk to the icy bottom of the sea. A strong premonition washed over me. She wasn't coming back. Sure enough, a few minutes later my phone vibrated. It was a video sent by that 28-year-old Willow. Chapter 2. I opened the video. The image shook the background, a dimly lit alley. In the video was that girl whose every detail was etched into my bones. Her eyes were bloodshot and With a few bodyguards beside her, she fought like a madwoman, fists and kicks raining down on several thugs. Her blows were ruthless, utterly unlike the poise and elegance she usually carried. Makoto, beaten nearly to unconsciousness, suddenly lunged forward during her pause for breath and wrapped his arms around her waist, his voice trembling. "Willow, stop hitting them, I was worried about you." Her body stiffened instantly. She turned her head, panting, and her tone carried a mix of fear and impatient reproach I had never heard before. "Are you an idiot? In a situation like this, why didn't you call the police?" Makoto hesitated for a moment, his voice quiet yet sincere. "I don't have any other friends. You're the only real friend I have. Sorry for making you worry." She froze, staring at the boy's earnest gaze. After a moment of silence, her voice softened unconsciously. "Set me as your emergency contact. Then you won't miss me again. Set me as your emergency contact." Those words stabbed into my heart like a poisoned dagger. Once I had asked her the same thing. There was a time when I accidentally dialed her phone in my sleep. She answered several times with no reply, panicking so much that she spent the whole night sleepless, rushing back from another city. There were no flights. That pampered young lady forced herself into an 8-hour train ride. When she burst into my home and saw me safe, she hugged me with red eyes. "George, you scared me to death." Back then she forced me to set her as my emergency contact. I thought I would always be her one and only. Turns out I wasn't. The video blurred. My fingers trembled and I shut off the screen. A dull ache pulsed from where my heart was. I stared numbly at the giant screen, at the hollow tragedies and joys, unable to take in a single word. When the movie ended, the lights came on and the crowd surged toward the exit. I too stood and headed for the doors. At that moment, a sharp creak echoed overhead, then came the wave of panicked shouts. The ceilings collapsing, run boom, a deafening crash and violent tremor swallowed everything in an instant. I didn't even have time to react. My vision went black as heavy debris and rubble buried me completely. In the last second before losing consciousness, my heart was filled with nothing but boundless grief and a bitter, absurd irony. Look, George. That Willow from 10 years later remembered that today was the day Makoto would be in danger, which was why she desperately urged her past self to save him. But she forgot, or rather she never cared, that on this very same day in this very same place I would also face a deadly disaster. So in the end, 10 years later, she really didn't love me at all. I awoke in crushing darkness. Here, still signs of life, quickly through the haze I felt myself being carefully lifted from the ruins. Blinding sunlight forced tears from my eyes. My body was rushed along as the piercing wail of an ambulance siren split the air. When I came to again, the stinging smell of disinfectant filled my nose. The anesthesia was fading and the dull ache of surgery returned vividly. I was wheeled out of the operating room, the doctor's voice gentle as he reassured me the surgery was very successful. "The fracture in your left leg has been stabilized. The mild concussion needs observation, but the rest are just surface injuries. Rest well and you'll be fine." Before he finished speaking, my bed suddenly jolted to a stop. Forced my eyes open and met a pair of familiar eyes. She was just stepping out of the room next door. Makoto was beside her, face pale, a bandage on his temple. The 28-year-old Willow was steadily supporting his arm. The moment she saw me, covered head to toe in bandages, face ashen, my leg encased in heavy plaster, her expression changed instantly. She almost immediately shook off Makoto and rushed to my bedside in a single stride. "George, what happened to you?" Her voice was full of panic. She reached out, wanting to touch me, but her hand froze in midair. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the 28-year-old Willow holding onto Makoto, a flicker of surprise flashing in her gaze before it quickly cooled into indifference, as if none of this concerned her in the slightest. I was too exhausted, all my strength drained. I didn't want to say a word, only closed my eyes. The doctor sighed and explained on my behalf. This student was rescued from the collapsed cinema downtown. He was buried quite deep, lost a lot of blood. If he'd been found any later, it might have been life-threatening. The color drained instantly from Willow's face. She whipped her head around, glaring at her 28-year-old self, her lips trembling as if to question her, but in the end she only said urgently, "I'm his girlfriend. I'll take him back to his ward. The patient needs absolute rest right now." The doctor blocked her gently. "Wait a little before visiting. Lying on the hospital bed listening to their conversation, I felt a dull ache in my chest that was even worse than the post-surgery pain. So in her heart, I had never truly been the only one. The nurse wheeled me into the ward and the door shut behind with a click. But the muffled argument outside still reached me clearly, every word distinct. "Aren't you supposed to be me 10 years from now?" That was 18-year-old Willow, her voice shaking with fury. "If you remember so clearly even a trivial thing like Makoto being blocked by thugs today, then why didn't you say a single word about George being in danger at the cinema? He almost died. Do you understand?" Silence fell for a moment, then came the cold voice of 28-year-old Willow. "Why should I remember? My heart is only with Makoto, so naturally I only remember his matters. As for people who don't matter, whether they live or die, what does that have to do with me?" Her tone was so flat, as though she were stating an undeniable fact. "You're insane," the younger Willow roared. What followed were the heavy thuds of fists striking flesh mixed with nurses' startled cries, frantic words of dissuasion, and Makoto's panicked attempts to stop the fight. Inside the ward, I lay quietly, tears sliding soundlessly from the corners of my eyes, soaking into the pillow. A person who doesn't matter. Chapter 3. So in her world 10 years later, all that remained of me were those weightless words. A person who doesn't matter. But once everything about me, even the little habits I forgot myself, or the casual wishes I mentioned in passing, Willow remembered them as if they were sacred decrees. I used to laugh at how good her memory was, but she would lie in my arms, rubbing her chin lazily against my arm, and say with quiet seriousness, "George, when it comes to you, I don't want to forget a single thing." I don't know how long it was before the quarrel outside finally died down. The ward door opened softly, and she walked in. There was still anger lingering on her face, but mixed with obvious guilt. Carefully, she came to my bedside, wanting to hold the hand that wasn't hooked to the floor. But I subtly drew away. Her hand froze in midair, her eyes dimming. "George, I'm sorry." Her voice was hoarse, laced with regret. "I really didn't know you would get into an accident." At that moment, I was just afraid that something really had happened to Makoto. After all, we're classmates. It would be terrible if someone died. And I was afraid that if you knew, you'd overthink it, you'd be angry, so I lied about buying Coke. I didn't expect. She apologized over and over, promising again and again, "It won't happen again, George, the first promise. From now on, I'll never let something like this happen again. Trust me." I listened quietly. The part of my chest that had long since gone cold and numb stirred with a faint stabbing ache. But those promises no longer meant anything to me, because I was about to leave to go to a place where she wouldn't be. So I kept my eyes shut, remained silent, and pretended to sleep. In the following days, she almost never left the ward, peeling apples, feeding me water, even clumsily trying to make me laugh. But the 28-year-old Willow would sometimes appear coldly, saying, "Willow, think it through. Makoto is the one you'll love in the future. His ankle is injured, he's all alone in the hospital. George has a caregiver. Makoto only has you. If you neglect him now, you'll regret it so much you'll want to tear your guts out later." And every time the 18-year-old her would snap back furiously, "I like George. Makoto has no one to care for him. Fine, I'll hire him the best caregivers. 3 of them, is that enough? Can you shut up now?" Her words were firm, but every evening as the sky darkened, she would grow restless. In the end, she would always come to me with apology and struggle in her eyes, saying, "George the first. I still feel uneasy about Makoto. I'll just go check on him, make sure he's fine, and then I'll come right back. Wait for me." But once she left, she never returned. Until deep into the night, my phone lit up with a message from the 28-year-old Willow. "George, face reality. The Willow 10 years later is destined to belong to Makoto. Let go and let the 18-year-old me be with him. I don't want to miss a single moment of being with Makoto." Every word stabbed into my heart like needles. So all the laughter, the moments, the memories of our years together, before this so-called destiny, were nothing but dust, worthless. Right after a video arrived. In the video, she was sitting by Makoto's hospital bed, carefully peeling an orange for him, even stripping away every last fiber of pith. Makoto looked at her, half joking, half serious. "Willow, if you take care of me like this, won't George be angry?" Her hand paused for an instant, but then she smiled lightly as if nothing was wrong. "George is a man, he's magnanimous. He won't be angry." I stared at the screen, every beat of my heart throbbing with pain. Yes, I was really magnanimous. Magnanimous to the point of what magnanimous enough to step aside on my own to let her be with her so-called destiny. On the day I was discharged, she was absent almost the entire day. It wasn't until evening that she finally rushed over. Her face showed obvious fatigue and guilt. "George, I'm sorry. Things with Makoto have been a little complicated these past few days. I couldn't get away. You've lost so much weight. Come on, let me take you to eat something good to make up for it." She spoke naturally as if I truly mattered to her. But I knew the panic and guilt in her eyes were only because she realized she had neglected me. Before I could respond, the 28-year-old Willow appeared supporting Makoto as they came out together. Makoto looked frail, his complexion pale, but he still followed at her side. The older Willow arched a brow, her lips curving into a smile of ambiguous meaning. "You're going out to eat? Perfect. Let's go together. Makoto's hungry too." The younger Willow frowned, lips pressed tight as though she wanted to refuse. But when her gaze met Makoto's eyes full of quiet expectation, in the end she said nothing, just kept silent, which meant tacit approval. At the restaurant, she picked up the menu and without hesitation rattled off a string of dishes. They were all the foods I loved. My chest stirred faintly, but before I could speak, the older Willow rapped her knuckles against the table, displeased. "Why are you ordering everything Makoto doesn't like? How should I know what he likes?" the younger Willow shot back stubbornly. The older Willow gave a cold snort, snatched the menu straight out of her hands, and ordered a few light dishes instead. So practiced, it was clear this wasn't her first time. Then she shoved her phone screen right in front of the younger one's eyes, her tone sharp and pressing. "Look carefully. These are all the foods Makoto will love in the future." Makoto's eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know what I like?" The older Willow turned to him, her gaze full of undisguised devotion. "I told you, I'm Willow from 10 years later. By then I love you more than anything." My chest clenched tight. In that moment I felt like nothing more than excess air. "Enough," the younger Willow cut her off, coldly flustered as she clutched my hand, speaking urgently. "George, don't listen to her nonsense. No matter what happens in the future, the one I like right now is only you." Truly, I sat frozen, my hand held tightly by hers, yet feeling no comfort at all. The older Willow seemed finally provoked to fury. Her voice rang sharp. "What use is your stubbornness now? Your feelings for him are only temporary infatuation. Your love for Makoto will last a lifetime. You'll run across the entire city just to buy him a bowl of sweet porridge. You'll drive to another town in the middle of the night to get mung bean cakes because he says he can't sleep when he's sick. You'll wish you could suffer in his place. All of this, you will do it for him and the one you're shielding now. One day you'll break his heart too." Pieces for Makoto. With that, she pulled up her phone's memo app and shoved it under the younger Willow's nose. "See for yourself, remember it. These are all Makoto's likes and dislikes." I saw the younger Willow staring at that dense list of notes, then glancing again at the pale-faced Makoto beside her. She fell silent. Her eyes grew complicated, and she even lowered her head to read a little more closely. In that instant, something heavy and blunt pressed hard against my chest. Suffocating. Chapter 4. I suddenly remembered that Willow's phone memo had once been my exclusive territory. From big things like my birthday wishes to small things like an offhand remark. "I really want to eat osmanthus cake from the south side of the city." She would solemnly jot it down and then make it happen one by one. Even when my mom asked her to note down a grocery list, she shook her head, clinging to my arm with pride and saying my memo is only for my George. Back then the whole family laughed, calling her a love brain at such a young age. But now I finally understood. In the future, that memo, once filled only with my name, would instead be crammed full of another boy's joys and sorrows. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood abruptly, my voice hoarse. "I'm going to the bathroom." In the restroom, I splashed cold water onto my face again and again, barely suppressing the suffocating grief. When I came out, I didn't look at that table of people again. I walked straight out of the restaurant. "George," she immediately chased after me. The 28-year-old Willow also followed, supporting Makoto, her voice cold. "Willow, you take Makoto home. His old neighborhood has poor lighting. It's not safe." Makoto waved his hand quickly, though his eyes stole a glance at her. No, that's too much trouble for you. You should take George home. I can go back myself." "No way," the older Willow cut him off firmly, then turned to the younger her. "Did you forget last time when debt collectors chased him and he jumped off a building? What if something happens again?" Her face showed visible struggle and hesitation, her eyes shifting back and forth between me and Makoto. I felt utterly exhausted, my chest as cold as an ice cellar. I just wanted to escape it all. Taking a deep breath, I said, "You take him first. I'll grab a cab back." "No," she panicked, clutching my wrist in a death grip. "I can't let you go back alone. I want to go with you," I asked coldly. "And what about him?" She hesitated for a long while, as though making a monumental decision. "I'll take him first. His home is closer. Then I'll come back for you. Both of you together." With that, she almost forced me into the car. The car stopped beneath Makoto's rundown apartment building. The surroundings were dim, the stairwell pitch black. The older Willow got out first, supporting Makoto. She said to the younger Willow, "There's no elevator and the voice-activated lights are broken. I'll help him up and you come too to light the way." The younger Willow looked at the dark stairwell, then at me. After a few seconds of hesitation, she said at last, "George, lock the doors and wait for me in the car. I'll take him up and come right back really quick." Before I could answer, she had already hurried into the building. I watched her figure disappear into the darkness, the cold in my chest spreading until it consumed my whole body. Time crawled by. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. Still no sign of her downstairs. The midnight wind seeped through the cracks of the car window, and I hugged my arms tight, shivering from the chill that bit bone deep. Suddenly, bang, 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 the window was struck violently. I jolted, turning my head to see a few drunken, swaggering men outside, their eyes full of malice as they tried to yank open the car door. "Well, little brother, sitting in a car alone is boring. Open up, let us have a taste of this luxury ride." My heart clenched, and I immediately locked all the doors. The thugs outside grew enraged, pounding on the glass with curses, one even picking up a brick in sheer terror. My hands shook uncontrollably, my mind blank. Instinctively, I pulled out my phone and pressed the number already long set as my emergency contact, Willow's. The call rang for a long time before she picked up. The background was noisy, with Makoto's faint, weak breathing mixed in. My voice was frantic, almost unrecognizable. "Willow, call someone. Quick, there are drunk men outside smashing the car." But on the other end came her hesitant voice, "George, the first can't leave right now." Makoto twisted his ankle. "He's in pain. I'm applying ointment for him. Just lock the car doors, you'll be fine." Before I could respond, she hung up. I froze completely, a buzzing filling my ears, threatening to drown me. My blood turned to ice. I couldn't believe it, truly couldn't believe it. Hands trembling, I dialed again, only to hear the cold, mechanical female voice. "The number you have dialed has been switched off." Outside, the thugs' twisted faces pressed against the glass, their fists pounding again and again, cracks spiderwebbing across the window. My vision went dark, and my chest felt as though it were being torn wide open. Chapter 5. Just when I thought it was truly over for me, voices suddenly barked in the distance, followed by hurried footsteps. The drunks cursed but eventually dispersed. A middle-aged man ran over, tapped on my car window, his tone scolding yet full of concern. "Young man, hurry home. Don't linger in places like this at night. Too many drunks around. You can't handle them alone." I trembled out a thank you, stumbled out of the car, and ran toward home. The night wind howled cold as knives, and I felt as though I had fallen into an icy abyss. That night I came down with a high fever, lying dazed in bed for several days. During that time, she only sent a few brief messages. "George, you went home by yourself. Did you make it home? Why aren't you replying then?" Nothing more. Instead, it was the 28-year-old Willow who haunted me like a ghost, relentlessly sending me videos. In those videos, she was carefully tending to Makoto's ankle, changing the medicine with gentle, attentive hands, as though he was the only person left in her world. Makoto murmured a soft thank you, and she turned her eyes away awkwardly, but she didn't refuse him. I stared at the screen, feeling as though my heart had been soaked in sour water, stinging unbearably. So, in the future, I had long since ceased to be the only one. I thought back to last winter when I hurt my leg skiing. Back then, Willow had done the same, clumsy but meticulous care, changing bandages, massaging, spoon-feeding me porridge. I had teased her, smiling, didn't expect Miss Lu to actually be so good at taking care of people. She raised her brows proudly, leaned in to kiss me, and said as if it were obvious, "Of course. I learned it just for my George. In this life, I'll only ever care for you." That sentence still echoed in my ears. But now she was using that care only for me on another boy. When the fever finally broke, the doorbell rang. Standing outside was Willow, absent for days, her face full of guilt and exhaustion she couldn't hide. "George, it was my fault last time for letting you go home alone." Her voice was soft, coaxing. "Don't be mad any more, okay? Today I'll take you to the amusement park as compensation. I promise I'll spend the whole day with you. I won't leave you alone again." I was already numb, unwilling to go. But against her half-pleading, half-forceful persistence, I was eventually pulled out the door. Yet the moment I got into the car, I froze. In the back seat sat Makoto and the 28-year-old Willow. A flicker of embarrassment crossed her face, and she hurried to explain. Makoto said, "He's never been to an amusement park. He looked so pitiful, so I thought we could just bring him along." "George, you're the most understanding. You won't mind, right?" I turned my gaze out the window. My chest was a frozen void, and I didn't want to say a word. At the amusement park, she and the older Willow went to buy tickets while I followed behind, and clearly heard their hushed argument. "Since it's Makoto's first time, pay more attention to him. Don't let him feel left out or scared." That was the 28-year-old Willow. "If you're worried about him, you go with him. I want to be with George." The younger her shook off her hand impatiently, then quickly bought the tickets and ran back to my side, reaching naturally for my hand. The entire morning she almost never left my side. She played games with me, helped me win a stuffed toy. She rode the roller coaster with me, holding my hand tightly when I screamed uncontrollably. Sunlight spilled across her profile, and in that moment I almost lost myself, as if we had gone back to the past, to those times when it was just the two of us, so sweet it was suffocating. If only not for the two ever-present gazes shadowing us from behind. After several rides, she tugged me along. "George, let's ride the Ferris wheel." "Your favorite," but the older Willow grabbed her voice firm. "No, it's time for the carousel. That's Makoto's favorite ride." "I'm going with George," the younger her retorted without backing down. The two of them locked in a stalemate. Then suddenly a panicked shout came from the distance. "Make way, the horse is spooked. Move aside." Before I could react, a figure lunged past me. Makoto. With sudden explosive strength, he shoved Willow, still facing away from the oncoming parade float, still arguing, out of harm's way. And then, bang, a heavy, sickening thud. His entire body was struck by the runaway carriage, flung like a kite with a cut string, crashing several meters away. Blood instantly stained the ground red. Makoto Willow's eyes went wide with horror. She rushed forward, trembling as she held him, pressing down hard on his wound, her voice breaking to pieces. "An ambulance, call an ambulance. How could you be so stupid?" Makoto's breath was shallow, but he forced a faint smile. "Because you're the one I like, Willow. I don't want anything back, just as long as you don't hate me." My feet were nailed to the ground. I looked at Willow, waiting for her to say, as she always had before, that she already liked someone else. That person was me. But she only held him tighter, her eyes red. Not a single word. In that moment I heard the sound of my heart shattering completely. So loud, so sharp, it drowned out everything else. Chapter 6. The ambulance wailed as it arrived, and both Willows, the 18-year-old and the 28-year-old, rushed inside with Makoto in panic. Through it all, her eyes never once left Makoto. Not for a single second. And I, the one standing outside the crowd, my face pale as paper, she didn't even notice me. I took a cab to the hospital on my own. From the long corridor, I watched with my own eyes as she clutched Makoto, nearly throwing herself into the operating room with him. She pulled out her phone, her hands trembling, but her voice steely, carrying a force that brooked no refusal. "Dad, my classmate is hurt. Call every top specialist you know and get them to the Central Hospital immediately. I want him alive." That familiar scene was like a poisoned blade stabbing straight into my heart, then twisting cruelly. I remembered last year when I was in a car accident. Back then she had been the same, carrying me in a frenzy even when her own arm was bleeding badly, demanding that they draw her blood to give to me. Anyone who tried to stop her, she would fight to the death. At the time I thought that was proof that I was her only one. But now it had become the sharpest irony. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. I turned and left the suffocating hospital. My footsteps staggered my back, so lonely that even the sound of my steps echoed hollow. In the days that followed, I never set foot in that hospital again. But the 28-year-old Willow clung to me like a restless ghost, bombarding me with messages. In the videos, she sat by Makoto's hospital bed, feeding him soup in soft tones, peeling apples, even reading him storybooks. In the photos, she was asleep by his bedside, their hands tightly entwined. Her intention couldn't have been clearer. She wanted me to back off, to let them be. I didn't reply. My heart was already numb, frozen past the point of feeling pain. Until the day of the graduation ball. She had sent a gift box to my house early, a finely tailored suit. When I changed into it and went downstairs, the first thing I saw was Makoto standing by her car. The suit he was wearing was almost identical in design and details to mine. The only difference was that his was more elaborate, the fabric finer and of higher grade. Makoto noticed my glance and with good intentions explained, "George, this suit is from Willow. Looks like it's from the same series as yours." My heart sank heavily. From the corner of my eye, I caught Willow's face stiffen, instantly, unnaturally so. She hurried to change the subject, pulling me into the car. The moment the door shut, my phone buzzed. It was a message from the 28-year-old Willow. "Did you see the one Makoto's wearing is the original haute couture. Yours is just the companion piece, mass-produced, thrown in as a bonus when buying the real one." Her heart has already started to shift. My fingers tightened around the phone, icy cold. The pain in my chest no longer felt like pain, just a hollow emptiness. At the ball, each pair had to sign in together as dance partners. I saw her pick up the pen and almost instinctively she wrote down her name together with Makoto's. Only after the ink was already on paper did she jolt back to her senses, panic flashing across her face. She rushed to explain, "Sorry, George, I wrote it without thinking. It was a mistake." She even turned to her older self and suggested, "Why don't you be George's dance partner for the sign?" And I stared at her in a daze, a memory suddenly flashing in my mind. Back in middle school at another dance we had fought and I spitefully asked another girl to be my partner. She had shown up at my building with red eyes, waiting all night just to beg my forgiveness. She had told me then that I was her only dance partner. So it turned out, the first one to change was really her. I said nothing. Silently I walked forward and signed my name alone on the list. Without a partner. Chapter 7. The music began. She hesitated for a moment, but in the end she reached out and took Makoto's hand, gliding into the dance floor with him. The 28-year-old Willow stood nearby, her eyes fixed tightly on Makoto, brimming with an intense love she could no longer conceal. And I could only stand alone in the corner, as dark and forgotten as a shadow. At the height of the ball, fireworks exploded brilliantly outside the night sky. The crowd cheered and surged toward the balcony. I saw it then. Beneath the dazzling fireworks, both the 18-year-old her and the 28-year-old her turned at the same moment, their gazes focused entirely on the boy beside them, who was looking up with a face full of delight. Makoto. That sight stabbed into my eyes like a blade. Silently I stepped back, turning to leave. Suddenly, boom, a deafening explosion came from above. The firework racks had malfunctioned. Burning fragments rained down like fire, striking the balcony, instantly igniting curtains and decorations. Panic swept the crowd. Screams, shoves, cries everywhere. Makoto. Amid the chaos I heard her voice. I instinctively turned back, only to see her clutching her 28-year-old self, her eyes filled with a terror I had never witnessed before. "What are you standing there for? Go save Makoto." Not dragged. Not pushed. But her own choice. She chose Makoto. In that instant my heart died completely. Flames and black smoke surged. The panicked crowd knocked me down and I choked, unable to breathe. Before my consciousness slipped away, my final thought was strangely calm. In the end it was the firefighters who dragged me from the inferno. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the hospital. Beside my bed sat the 28-year-old Willow. Her eyes were cold as she spoke first. "Don't bother looking for her. She's in Makoto's ward. She stayed by his side all night and just fell asleep." She paused, her voice sharp. "You saw it yourself. This time she chose Makoto on her own. She's already in love with him, even if she hasn't fully realized it yet. Stop clinging. Leave with some dignity." With that she left without hesitation. I stared at the ceiling, my dry lips moving faintly, whispering, "The truth is, I already gave her up." That evening the ward door opened. I froze. It was Makoto. The moment he entered, eyes red, he dropped to his knees before my bed with a thud. "I beg you, please let me be with Willow. Without her I'll die." Exhausted I rasped, "I was never with her to begin with. What is there to let go of?" What I meant was I had already stepped aside. Their story had nothing to do with me anymore. But clearly he misunderstood. He jerked his head up, his eyes burning with resentment and despair. So you just refused to let us be together, fine? I understand. With that he ran out in tears. I was drained, too weary to chase, unwilling to explain. I simply closed my eyes, letting the crushing fatigue drag me under. The next morning, just as I was about to process my discharge papers, pain seared the back of my neck. My vision went black and I lost consciousness completely. When I came to, I found myself stuffed inside a sack, my body aching all over, unable to move. Outside, voices rang clear. It was them. The 28-year-old Willow's voice was icy with fury. Yesterday Makoto only saw you afterward. He went back and jumped into the lake. If we hadn't found him in time, he'd be dead. You drove Makoto to this. So you must pay the price. And the 18-year-old, her voice trembling with struggle and hesitation. What price? Makoto's fine now, isn't he? Don't do something reckless. Chapter 8. No harm. That was just Makoto's luck. You hurt the person we love the most. If I don't vent this hatred, I'll never be at peace. Don't worry, I'm only teaching you a lesson. Tying you up, scaring you so you'll have some fear in the future. And never dare to hurt Makoto again. It was the 28-year-old Willow, her indifference so chilling it froze me to the core. After a moment of silence, I heard the 18-year-old her finally speak. Don't go too far, otherwise I'll never forgive you. Understood. Now go back to accompany Makoto. He just woke up, he needs you. The older one's voice suddenly softened. Then came the sound of footsteps fading away. The air fell silent like death itself. I knew. The 18-year-old her had left. And the very next second, a cold, cruel order rang out. Do it. 99 strikes. Not one less. Make him remember this lesson. As the iron rod came down with a whistling crack, my vision burst into a haze of red. Ugh. The first blow landed on my back, my body arching violently, teeth sinking deep into my lip as the taste of blood filled my mouth. The second strike crashed against my leg, my bones feeling as though they had been shattered. The third whipped across my arm, the sound of flesh tearing unmistakable. The waves of pain drowned me like a rising tide. I was like a fish flung onto shore, writhing and spasming inside the sack. My nails dug into my palms until they split and bled, but I clenched my teeth, refusing to cry out. 99 strikes. I lost track of how many times I blacked out, only to be forced awake again by agony. All I remembered was that when they finally dumped me at the doorstep, even my breathing reeked of blood. I don't know how long it took before I dragged myself back home, my body on the verge of collapse. My phone rang. On the screen, it was Willow. With the last of my strength, I picked up. On the other end, her voice was weary but carried little guilt. George, I'll be staying at the hospital for the next few days to take care of Makoto. His emotions are unstable. You stay home and rest, and in a few days, we'll go to South City University together. She didn't even ask me what I had been through. Listening to her, my heart went completely cold. She didn't know I wouldn't be going to South City University. I wouldn't love her anymore. I said nothing. Just a faint drained of all strength before hanging up. In the days that followed, dragging a body covered in vicious bruises, each step a stab of pain, I quietly packed all my luggage for studying abroad. On the day of reporting to campus, she was still at the hospital, never came back. Alone, I wheeled my suitcase to the airport. Before boarding, I compiled everything, the countless videos and photos sent by her 28-year-old self, every scene of the 18-year-old her and Makoto together, every intimate moment. And the brutal images of my back and arms carved with 99 welts. I sent it all to the 18-year-old Willow. This would be my final dignity. In the postscript, I only wrote a few lines. I know you've already fallen for Makoto. So I've decided to step aside to give you both my blessing. I won't be going to South City University. These 99 strikes have already severed every possibility between us. Willow in this lifetime will never meet again. After sending it, I didn't hesitate. I blocked and deleted every one of her contacts, leaving nothing behind. As the plane roared and climbed into the clouds, I looked at my reflection in the cabin window. No tears, only cold, unyielding resolve. In that moment, I finally understood. To let someone go is to do it quietly and completely. Chapter 9. On the other side, the hospital ward was filled with the smell of disinfectant. Willow sat at Makoto's bedside, but her gaze seemed unfocused. Just then her phone vibrated. A file transfer request popped up, the sender's name, George. George, these past days he had been distant and indifferent toward her. This was the first time he had ever taken the initiative to send her something. Willow didn't know his intention, but for some reason panic stirred in her heart. She immediately clicked to receive. The download bar crawled forward every second, slicing at her patience. Makoto softly called her name, but it couldn't ease her growing unease. Finally, the file finished. She opened it in a rush. The first thing to appear was a video. The background was Makoto's ward. On the screen she was bent over, clumsy but intent, peeling an orange for Makoto. The angle was hidden, clearly filmed in secret. Next came photos. Her and Makoto at a restaurant, handing him a glass of water in the hospital hallway, supporting him as he walked, even one from the amusement park, her eyes unconsciously following Makoto as he was struck down. Willow's breath hitched. These fleeting moments she herself might not even have remembered clearly, had all been captured, recorded, and sent to George. A wave of anger surged in her chest, but stronger still was a gnawing panic. He saw everything. Her fingers trembled as she swiped to the next image. This time the subject was George. In the photo, his once fair skin was covered in hideous bruises, some places torn open and bleeding. The wounds sprawled across his arms, back, waist. There wasn't a patch of unmarked flesh. The last few pictures showed an iron rod tossed carelessly on the ground, as if still stained with blood. A deafening roar filled her head, her blood rushing backward, leaving her ears ringing. Frantically, she enlarged the images, her trembling fingers searching for any trace of forgery. But the details of the wounds were so real, so vivid, it was suffocating. Who did this? Could it be the 28-year-old Willow? That day she had said she would teach George a lesson. Could this have been what she meant? And finally George's note, words that shattered her completely. I know you've already fallen for Makoto, so I've decided to step aside to give you both my blessing. I won't be going to South City University. These 99 strikes have already severed every possibility between us. Willow, in this lifetime we will never meet again. Her mind went blank, buzzing. She dialed George's number like a madwoman. The number you have dialed has been switched off. With his phone off, she turned to WeChat, but all she got was a red exclamation mark. Every contact she could think of, all vanished into the void. A crushing panic consumed her. She no longer cared about anything, not even the Makoto in the hospital bed. She grabbed her car keys and rushed out of the ward, speeding all the way to George's apartment building. She pounded furiously on the familiar door, but only silence answered. A neighbor from across the hall, disturbed by the noise, peeked out. Don't bother knocking. George isn't home. He left this morning with a suitcase, said he was going abroad to study. Gone. Willow froze in place, her whole body cold. Whatever else the neighbor said, she couldn't hear a word. Her mind was filled only with those bloody, brutal photos, and the echo of George's departure. He was really gone. All because of those 99 strikes. All because of the misleading photos sent by her 28-year-old self. In the end, they had driven away her George, driven him to no longer want her. Willow rushed back to Makoto's ward. As expected, the 28-year-old Willow was there, holding a towel as if to wipe Makoto's face. Was it you? What did you do to him? Willow grabbed her older self by the collar, slamming her hard against the wall, shoving her phone almost into her face, the screen displaying close-ups of George's horrific injuries. The older Willow froze for a moment, her eyes flicking across the photos, a flicker of emotion flashing within them, but it quickly vanished into cold indifference. She pried Willow's hand off her, tone flat. He drove Makoto to the point of jumping into the lake, nearly losing his life. Compared to that, a few flesh wounds are nothing. I just made sure he remembers. Don't touch what should never be touched. Bastard. Willow swung her fist in fury. That was George, my George, the one I love most. How could you raise your hand against him? The older Willow easily blocked her, twisting her wrist with terrifying strength. Willow, wake up. For Makoto, it's all worth it. He is the one we love. And George, what does he matter? No, you're lying. I love George. Willow screamed back, her voice raw. Do you? The older Willow sneered. Then why did you keep abandoning him for Makoto? Why did you change your college application? Why did you leave him at the cinema? Admit it. Your heart already strayed long ago. I just helped speed up the process, saved you both from wasting 10 years of your lives for a moment. Willow was struck speechless. At that moment Makoto stirred from the noise, weakly murmuring, "Willow, don't fight. I'm sorry, it's all my fault." He had always been frail and now he looked as though he might faint any second. Willow's heart tangled into knots at his voice. She looked at Makoto's pale face, then George's brutal injuries flashed in her mind. The two images clashed violently, tearing her apart inside. The older Willow's words echoed like a curse, replaying endlessly in her ears. Suddenly she shoved her older self away, stumbling out of the ward, collapsing against the wall as she gasped for breath. That night Willow didn't sleep at all. Every time she closed her eyes, George's battered body and Makoto's ashen face alternated before her, haunting her relentlessly. Chapter 10. From that day on, although Willow still appeared at the hospital every day, carefully tending to Makoto's needs, she had become a completely different person. She grew quiet, speaking little, often staring out the window for long stretches of time, her eyes so hollow it was frightening. Those peach blossom eyes that once always followed George now seemed covered in ashes, dull and lifeless. She still helped Makoto take his medicine with care, remembered the times for his 4 changes, and adjusted the height of his pillows. But when her gaze occasionally fell on Makoto, it no longer carried the same warmth or concern. Instead, it held a meaning far more complicated and difficult to read. Makoto, sharp and sensitive, noticed her absent-mindedness and the heavy air she carried. Jealousy burned inside him like fire, mingled with deep unease. He knew all of this was because of George, and he absolutely could not allow her to go on thinking of that boy who had already left. Outwardly, he became even more gentle, kind, and considerate. When she held a glass of water to his lips, he would sigh softly, as though unintentionally. "Willow, you seem unhappy these days. Is it because of George? Is he still angry at me? It's all my fault. If not for me, maybe he wouldn't have acted so rashly, wouldn't have left out of spite." His words sounded tender, but every phrase subtly magnified George's flaws. Whenever he spoke like this, Willow would frown tightly. Other times, when she drifted off in thought, he would suddenly clutch her sleeve. "Willow, don't ignore me. I'm really worried. You're all I have now. If you don't care about me either, I honestly don't know what I'd do." He tried to use his weakness and his dependence on her to reel back her wandering thoughts, to bind her firmly at his side. The 28-year-old Willow saw all of this and, of course, seized every opportunity to reinforce her own conviction. Whenever Makoto was asleep, she would coldly whisper to the younger Willow, staring blankly out the window, "Look at yourself. For a boy who's already in the past, who was vicious enough to drive Makoto into the lake, you're falling apart. Do you think you're being fair to Makoto? He is the one you'll truly love in the future, the one you'll risk everything to protect. Stop having thoughts you shouldn't have. Give your whole heart to Makoto." Usually Willow only stayed silent, responding with a cold profile. But sometimes, when pushed too far, she would suddenly whip her head around, bloodshot eyes burning, her voice hoarse with rage. "Shut up. If the future you keep talking about has to be built on such cruel sacrifices, then I'd rather not have it at all." Yet after shouting, faced with the older Willow's cold, resolute gaze and the pale, fragile figure of Makoto on the bed, a vast helplessness and confusion would swallow her whole. The future, that so-called future, pressed down on her until she could barely breathe. To ease her suffocating anxiety, she sometimes met with her closest friends. At the dinner table, someone would casually ask Willow, "Why haven't we seen George lately? Weren't you two always stuck together like conjoined twins? Did you fight again?" Willow's expression instantly froze. Her lips moved, but she couldn't say a single word, only clumsily change the subject. A sharp-eyed friend noticed her strange demeanor and muttered suspiciously, "Willow seems kinda weird lately," but none of them could pinpoint exactly what was wrong. Willow tried every method she could think of to find traces of George. At last, with no other choice, she called one of their mutual friends. On the other end, the boy's tone was surprised. "George, he didn't say where he went. We haven't been in touch for a long time." She dug out the old email account they once shared as children and sent him a long letter. No reply ever came. She even went to stand beneath his apartment, staring up at that darkened window. She waited the whole night until dawn broke, but that window never lit up again. For the first time, she felt so vividly, so desperately, George was truly gone. Completely, cleanly erased from her world. He had left, carrying his hatred for her, perhaps also her wavering heart and the utter despair of those 99 strikes. And she was left behind, surrounded by Makoto's sobs, her 28-year-old self's cold words, and the relentless gnawing of regret that chewed her heart apart, leaving her unable to move. George, where are you? Chapter 11. Across the ocean, the air carried a strange damp chill as I dragged my suitcase out of the airport. On the streets, hurried passers-by spoke in a language I couldn't understand at all. Loneliness washed over me like a tide, seeping into every corner of my life during those first few days. The tiny apartment I rented was cramped but clean. I had to assemble the furniture piece by piece myself, and every formality had to be handled alone. In the classrooms, the professor's technical terms sounded like an indecipherable code. During group discussions, I often couldn't get a word in. I would sit there stiffly, trapped in awkward silence. At night, waves of anxiety and frustration drowned me. The 99 strikes that scarred my body gradually faded with time, the purple bruises turning into faint marks. But the scars in my heart throbbed quietly every silent night. Willow's impatient tone during that last phone call, the image of Makoto leaning against her, the sound of the rod striking me again and again, all remained my unshakable nightmares. Yet I did not give up. I gritted my teeth and endured. The library became my second home, one lamp, stacks of thick books and notebooks keeping me company until dawn. I practiced speaking over and over, forcing myself to join group discussions even if my sentences stumbled and broke. Hard work paid off. By the end of the first semester, my transcript bore a shining A. My professor praised my paper publicly in class. During group projects, I could finally express my ideas clearly. Confidence long lost returned to me little by little. That semester, our group had a particularly heavy project. It was then that I met Anna, a Chinese upperclassman 2 years ahead of me. She was well known in the department, capable and admired. At our first meeting, she wore a simple white sweater and khaki pants. Her demeanor was calm, her words precise and logical, never overbearing. During collaboration, she noticed my diligence and quick learning ability. She admired my thought process, and when I ran into technical barriers, she would recommend a few helpful papers. Always at the right time, never intrusive, always respectful. Her way of speaking carried just the right balance, a comfortable sense of boundaries. It made me slowly develop a quiet fondness for her, a sense of peace. One night, as we stayed late in the lab, my old stomach condition flared up. Cold sweat covered my forehead, my face turned ghostly pale. I tried to endure, unwilling to slow our progress. But my trembling didn't escape Anna's eyes. "Are you feeling unwell?" She immediately stopped her work, her brows furrowing, eyes full of genuine concern. "Rest for a bit. There's a first aid kit here. I remember there's medicine for the stomach. I'll find it." Watching her turn to search through the cabinet, a long-lost warmth rose inside me. She returned with medicine and warm water, watching as I swallowed the pills. "Thank you," I whispered, truly moved. She smiled gently, then naturally shifted the topic to something light, distracting me. That unspoken care made me feel, for the first time in this foreign land, a sense of solid safety. A few days later, the weather warmed. I wore short sleeves. While handing her some documents, my sleeve slipped, revealing a faint scar still etched on my arm. Anna's eyes flickered over it and paused for a moment. I realized instantly, yanking my sleeve down as if burned. My fingertips turned cold, shame and pain rushing back all at once. But she asked nothing. No prying, no pity. She only accepted the papers, her gaze gentle, with just the faintest trace of sorrow hidden in her eyes. Then she pointed casually out the window toward a blossoming tree and smiled. "Look, the cherry blossoms bloomed early this year. I heard there are more in the botanical garden. If you have time, you should go clear your head a bit." Her graceful diversion left a sting in my heart, but also a warmth that slowly began to melt the ice. "All right, once the project's done," I answered softly. "I'll go with you." Her eyes met mine, sincere, calm, and I felt heat rising to my face. When I was with her, I didn't need to pretend to be strong. I didn't need to explain my past. I could simply be George, the most ordinary version of myself. With her encouragement and presence, smiles gradually returned to my face. I discussed interesting ideas from class with her, sometimes accepted the Chinese snacks she happened to buy an extra of. One afternoon under a golden sun, we really did go to the botanical garden together. The breeze shook the cherry blossom's loose petals drifting gently onto my hair. At that moment I felt as though maybe, just maybe, I could really start over. Anna looked at me. I tilted my head back slightly, closing my eyes to feel the sunlight. Her gaze lingered on me, soft and unwavering. Sensing something, I opened my eyes and met hers. She froze for an instant while I, without knowing why, smiled. "You look nice when you smile," she whispered. The warm sunlight poured over me and my heart gave